go in Perth, Ontario, where my monastery is. It's 2 degrees in the night, and I think it was 6 high, temperature high. And I'm glad I'm here. It's it's nice. It's very cloudy. This in November, December, Canada. It's the days are very short because you're closer to the equator. Your variation in daylight isn't as great as ours, so it's dark by 5. It only gets light at 7. Yeah, so there's a lot of darkness, a lot of clouds, and it's usually wet and depressing. So people get what's it called? There's a name for it. They have a lack of sunlight, and so they get depressed from the lack of sunlight. There's a syndrome name for it. That's not the problem here. And all the travel companies start showing advertisements for coming to Thailand or Florida, or so I'm in the advertisement. I'm here. So just again, this in some Buddhist literature, I have come across the idea of positive desire, the desire to do good, to help others, etc. How is it related to tanha? Is desire always tanha? So again, desire is desire. Sometimes it's coming from wisdom, and sometimes it's coming from avijja, from a lack of understanding. And if you didn't have desire, you wouldn't do anything. So desire is, and when you have suffering, you want to get out of the suffering. So the teaching is actually, in a way, we're made for enlightenment. Because until we really fulfill our desires and see the end of desire, we'll always have desire. But most people don't understand the desire. They're just looking for objects to get rid of their desire. And sometimes they get the objects and oftentimes they don't. We're looking at desire itself and understanding it. And in understanding desire, we can do wholesome things. We can make adhitanas. We can create disciplines. We can do all of that, but it's coming from right view, wisdom, and so on. So let's say maybe I have a habit of speech that hurts people. Just blurt things out. I'm too forthright, and I just say things which I think are truthful, but actually hurtful to other people. And then I walk away from that, and I think, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to end up hurting people. I'd like to change. That's a good thing, isn't it? And then how do I change? Well, I have to be aware of the arising of hurtful speech. I have to have enough mindfulness to see, no, don't say anything. I have to admit my mistake. So I just call someone a name. I did it again. I have to begin and keep training the mind to practice restraint of speech and to practice right speech. And that takes training. That is different than thinking, I'm a horrible person. I have wrong speech. I should be a nicer person. That is ego. That is self-view. The other saying, well, it doesn't matter. It's anatta, right? I can call you a turkey if I want. There's no one there. That's delusion. And no, you're not going to have any friends either from that. So the middle, the kind of the wise way is you're always seeing cause and effect, and you are trying to be a more compassionate person. You are sensitive to the suffering of others. You want other beings to be free from suffering, but you're not enslaved to them. You're not just like, oh, are you okay? Did I hurt you? Oh, I'm sorry. That's not wisdom either. That's just always buying into their problem. So the only thing you can do is you can know your own intentions. Okay, I spoke to you with strength, but I had no intention to hurt you, but I felt that this was the truth. And okay, if the person says you hurt me and so on, you can say, well, okay, I mean, I'll take that on board, but my intention wasn't to hurt. So it's always this sort of self-responsibility and, wanting to do the craft of being a human being, wanting to do it well. Each day is like making a new piece of furniture or designing a new home or something like that, or doing some dental work really, really well. It's the same kind of idea that you wake up in the morning and you think, yeah, I'll take the challenge of today and try to do it better, but not from ego. Like I should be better, I should be different. That's not it. It's just the very natural way of being aware. This is going to be helpful. This is not going to be helpful. So my references to leadership, being a senior monk, having people that are junior to me and having to lead. I made a lot of mistakes. I got really burnt out once and I said things which are unskillful, but I kept learning. I kept learning and learning. And so leadership is a bit easier for me now. Well, that's just natural. So the desire to be a better person is great. And imagine if we didn't have that. Okay, so could Luangpor kindly teach how to do lying meditation? Here we go again. um, so lying meditation is not, in English, you'd have two words, lying. You could not tell the truth would be lying meditation. Lying, sorry. And lying down meditation. So you have to be English to understand this. Lying down meditation is an attempt to develop a posture of lying down and using it as a meditative posture. And I found it really, really helpful because my knees become increasingly problematic. And I came upon this meditation by probably around 2000, maybe over 20 years ago. And I was caring for my mom. And I was, and I lived in her condo. And so the walls between our rooms were very thin. And I was always concerned that she'd not fall. She was very old. So I became hyper vigilant, such that I was finding it hard to sleep. And I was really there on my own most of the time, 24/7. I mean, I could go for walks, but I was there all the time. So uh, I wasn't really sleeping well. I didn't want to take sleeping pills because I wanted to be awake in case mom fell. So I realized I just have to learn how to relax, at least to relax the body in the lying posture somehow. And so I started to look up. I think I came across a book about a yoga technique called Yoga Nidra, and Yoga Nidra is basically the yogic way of developing meditation in the corpse posture, the Savasana posture, and there the instruction I got was around this idea of whole body meditation that I presented, where you're aware of your mouth, your eyes, but the emphasis is always on the awareness rather than the bodily part. Now, this is a bit different than some techniques which are concerned about the bodily part. So and it's quite important. I can zero in on, say, the feeling in my nose and really, really, really try to really notice the subtleness of air there. So there I'm emphasizing the bodily sensation in a very refined way. But this meditation, where I just say, localize your attention on the face and practice welcoming awareness. There is the bodily feeling, but the emphasis more on the openness of awareness, if you see what I mean. So that was quite helpful, that instruction. And then when we did this meditation, I went through the body and I said, step outside, as it were, and know your body as vibration, as feeling in awareness. So the sense of space and largeness and the body, you don't define it as a body because it's not a concept. It's just changing vibration, right? You don't like, say, the left shoulder. You just have whatever vibrations are there. So whole body awareness then was a way of being very open. And then the body's tensions and pressures were just changing and manifesting. So then that developed the right attitude to the body lying there. So that was the meditation. And then the posture itself is the two features are to make sure that in Sarvasana, corpse posture, the knees are supported with a pillow or some bolster or something to make sure that the knees are not flat, that they are in somewhat concave or convex, that they're folded so that knees are like that. Because if they're flat, that puts a lot of pressure on the small of your back. So because they're somewhat curved, small of your back is relieved of any pressure. And then I had to pay attention a lot to my head because over the years I've developed a terrible habit of, because I wear glasses and they're progressive lenses, to look at the ground, I have to do this because you don't really see here. So I've developed a posture where my head's going down all the time. Anyway, so I had to put a lot of attention on my neck. So basically, I was setting up my body as a meditator would in the sitting posture. I wasn't just flopping down, collapsing in exhaustion. And then the idea is to do this meditation as a meditation, not as a way of falling asleep. Because if you're doing meditation as a way of falling asleep, not a good idea. You'll fall asleep when you meditate. So the idea was to do it when I had lots of energy. So because I was very kind of tense or whatever, always on the alert, I had lots of energy. It was not a lack of vitality. And then the most important hint from this teacher was to adjust your posture, then adjust it again 10%, and then don't move. And that I found very, very helpful. Both the adjusting it 10% quite deliberately, and then don't move. So what happens is you set your posture up. You're very careful. So this is meditation now. This isn't just flopping about. Formal practice. Set up the posture. Feel the neck. Okay, 10% more. Okay, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. That's it. No more movement. And then the aditana is to not move. Within 30 seconds, there's an itch in my shoulder or my hip feels. So there's the desire to move. Don't move. And so the desire to move becomes the object of awareness. Because the desire to move is actually restlessness. It's not really concerned with physical pain. It becomes quite a good way to become still. And I found it very, very effective, very effective. Now, some people sleep on their backs. They probably have this more difficult because they fall asleep. But if you fall asleep on your back, you will wake up and go wash your face, come back, do it again. You haven't lost. Okay, and then, or have a cup of coffee before, whatever you want. But I found, especially now, because my knees give me a lot of problem. to be able to alternate, to do like walking, some sitting, but mostly lying is tremendous. Trouble is I'm getting out of shape because I'm just lying around all the time. It's a bit of a drag, but I haven't figured that one out. But it is like let's say if you have a lot of fear in the body, some like deeply anxious situation coming up, just to be able to meditate in that posture where you're not holding the body up and you're just letting whatever the feelings, physical feelings of, in this case, fear, just to come up is tremendously helpful because it releases the bodily component of the fear, or anything you want. I think it was this retreat. Was it your brother that had the? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he had given up on meditation, and I think I told him do yoga nidra. I think that night he was meditating again, if I remember correctly. That's very rewarding, right, for a teacher to see that that works. So some people say, "Oh, you're cheating." You're so the perception is that meditation has to be painful. It has to hurt. Why? Why can't it be physically pleasant? It doesn't have to. In any case, if you want to try it during this retreat, please do so. Please don't do it in here because I might step on you. Um, I have been thinking, how can I do a yoga nidra retreat? Well, there'll be a lot of snoring on the retreat then. I think Ajahn Sachito teaches yoga nidra for people, but he walks around with them. So it's a good one to explore. Very, very, very useful. Um, so there's that. My mind is thinking all the time. As you're teaching about the sound of nature with open mind, is that cannot help my mind stop thinking. Yeah, because if you just make the deliberate intention to listen, there's no thinking. You're not getting rid of thought. You're just making the intention to go to another sense base. So thinking is a sense base. It's the mind base. Sound is another sense base. So you make a deliberate, you just listen. Oh, there's silence. And then your mind starts up again. Blah, 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 blah. And maybe 10 minutes go by. And then a pain in the knee comes in. Or you hear a sound and the thinking process is interrupted. Then, then that's the important, I think, point in meditation where you have to realize, oh, I'm here again. But many people in that moment of noticing that you've been thinking, then try to get rid of thought. And they try to meditate. And actually they have dosa, a kind of dosa to get rid of thinking. Or they analyze. They say, why am I thinking so much? I don't know why I'm thinking so much. And they're thinking again. So if you just go to a different sense space, so you just, you find you're planning your next week's schedule and you notice, oh, and you say planning. That's the end of thought. And listen to sound. They're very, very simple. So you're listening to sound not to get rid of the thoughts, but just to notice the mind without thinking. Oh, there it is. And there's Puru. Now wait. Actually, when you're there, you don't have to do anything. You're home. Trust that, but we don't. Because then desire comes up, or habit comes up, blah, 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 blah. So you might have to interrupt the thinking process many times in 1 minute. Yeah, for sure. Many times in 10 minutes. But each time you interrupt it and you make a kind of firm recognition, sound is like this. You're home again. So it's like returning home rather than getting something like trying to get rid of thought. Then over a period of time, you become more experienced in noticing the end of a thought. You'll be walking around in the forest and you're thinking about your family, and then thought, and then you stop. Sound is like this. So as the gaps between thinking become more noticed, because thinking isn't constant. It feels constant, but it's not. It comes and it goes. You're thinking and worrying about something, and then um, you'll hear a car, maybe a car horn, and there's a car horn. So thinking has stopped. There's an interruption. Notice that. Notice the periods of no thought. They're there all the time, but we're so kind of involved in our own thinking processes that we don't notice them. So notice, this is the end of thought, or do it deliberately. So I use sound a lot, and it's very simple, right? And then just go to the Gap. So we say go to the Gap, which isn't a clothing brand. It's sorry, it's the end of thought, the space between thought. It's there all the time, and that is the doorway to the deathless. Just that and this is the Bahia Sutta. In the seeing, there's just the seeing. In the hearing, there's just hearing. What am I doing? That's not tanha. It's just knowing. And then I realized that this silence of knowing is not fabricated. It's not something constructed. Here's one for you. Is how can no, let me see, how can I say this? Personality is not self. That personality is anatta. Do you think you're your personality? Personality is a constructed thing, right? Let's say you have in a family, there are two daughters. One daughter in her youth has a lot of asthma, is in hospital a lot, doesn't get to go to school a lot, maybe becomes very intellectual because she can read a lot. And the other daughter maybe has really good health and she's more athletic. And so over 20 years' time, you get two different personalities, correct? According to causes and conditions. So personalities, ita pachayata. With asthma as condition, you get a certain hospitalization, you get a certain personality developing, and then at 20 years' time, there's a personality, ita pachayata. And the other, so personality arises and changes according to causes and conditions, but it's anatta. And what does anatta mean? Anatta means there's no real essential Viradhammo. There is a personality. Lompa Cha was different than Lompa Mahabua. When George Sharp visited Lompa Mahabua in 1975, Lompa Mahabua was very, very brusque, kind of. And George, being English, wasn't afraid, wasn't nervous. He said, You're pretty heavy, aren't you? To Lompa Mahabua, you're pretty aggressive, aren't you? And Lompa Mahabua laughed and said, Yeah, it's my personality. Lompa Cha, was a different personality. So personality is definitely a thing and is definitely individual, but it is constructed. That's obvious, right? So in Nibbana Sutta, what is unconstructed? The thing about your personality is you can be aware of it. You can be aware that you're shy or that you're aggressive or that you're creative or that you think you're not creative. You can be aware of all that, can't you? But what is it that's aware? And the awareness is not fabricated. It's not the same as, it's not idapachayata. It's not constructed. It knows the constructed. So when your personality comes, you notice yourself being shy, say. I come into a room and I think I'll sit at the back, thank you. Or you notice you're in a different kind of person. You go right up to the front. Okay, teacher, let's have it. or and and or that's just natural. But is that who you are? Not really. That's just personality. So personality is neither good nor bad, but we also have sila and dana, because that's where personality gets developed for the good of yourself and for society. If you do not have sila and dana, and you just allow personality to run rampant, then there's no boundaries. And a child who is just spoiled is a messy being after a while. So there's social convention. So this is where social convention is a good thing, talking about silabata paramasa, to be well behaved, to move appropriately, to respect one's elders, to practice social justice, to fulfill one's responsibilities as a mother or a father or a husband or a wife. These are good things. And that that is the conditioning of society, which leads to a good society and a kind of harmonious happiness. But society also conditions you to be, women have to be a certain way. Young women have to be a certain way. The mother has to be a certain way. And some of that produces fear. Uh, Monks have that too, like we have a Vinaya. And a lot of monks will suffer from well, one of the monks told me he's got the Vinaya tyranny in his mind. He reads the rules, and then he's such an anxious guy. The rules keep judging him. No, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. So there, the social conditioning creates a personality who's anxious, which is not good. That's not the point of it. So what in your personality is wholesome and unwholesome? And what in your personality creates is unwholesome and you can know that. You can know that you feel like in society, maybe you feel, you haven't got the right hairstyle this year or something like that. Not my problem. Or, like the brand of shoe this year. Oh gosh, I got last year's shoe on. I don't know if I can go to the party. That happens. We laugh about it, but it does happen, doesn't it? That's silapata paramasa. That's social convention. But the other social convention is that, you wash your feet at least when you go to the party. That you're clean and you're well dressed and so on. It's a good convention. So you can notice personality. And then in terms of personality view, how the mind thinks in those ways. So I'm no good. I'm not up to the mark. I should be better than others. They're no good. They should be up to the mark. That sense of creating a self and another, do you say to that? I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. Just destroy it with love. Because that's delusion. Because if I'm always critical of myself, that's a thinking mode that's been conditioned from various factors that now has become a habit of self-view, of Sakaya Ditti. But I can know that. And the knowing is not constructed, puru, witness. So although I can maybe listen to sound, it's very hard to know shyness is shyness, or feeling awkward as feeling awkward. That's the more difficult, but it's the same idea. I just know it as it is. And if I do that, if I see that listening to sound or feeling an arom is the same practice of knowing, then the witnessing becomes stronger and stronger. This is always the gateway to peace, the gateway to freedom. So whoever you think you are, that's not who you are. You are that which knows the thinking. So if you think you're great, fine. That's a thought. That's a perception. If you think you're total rubbish, fine. That's not who you are either. You're neither great nor not great. That's just a thought that comes and goes in awareness.